Some people would say maybe the parable of the Good Samaritan is known a little bit more. But I think whether or not we went to Sunday school, whether or not we sat in church, it makes no difference. This is quite the story. And when I stepped back from it, looking at it earlier this week, I thought to myself, this is really something that an important lesson as we come closer and closer to the end of Lent is the story of a truly messed up family. Now, you're not going to get upset with me because you know as well as I do, all of our families are messed up. Mine is. I won't bore you with the details. This one on the surface doesn't seem so, but if you listen carefully and look carefully, it's worth taking the insert home and looking at it again. Look at characters. Well, first and foremost, we have the younger son. And I'm not going to use the word prodigal because who knows what that means anymore, right? This is someone who is over the top, or better, this kid is out of control. Some of us know what that means, to have a kid out of control. So, then there is the older son, the older boy, the good boy. He's so good it's disgusting. I mean, look at what he says to his father. I have worked for you like a slave all these years. You never gave me a party for my friends. And look what you're doing for this creep. And then there's the younger son, the so-called prodigal, dissolute, a kid who's truly out of control. Just to give you an idea of how in the culture at that time, this was truly a case of honor and shame. Under ordinary circumstances, if this younger son ever came back to town, there would be people from the town with pottery smashing it as he walked down the road, screaming, shame, shame. And they would continue doing this until they had successfully either driven him into the house or back out of town. Why? Because he brought scandal and dishonor, not just to his family, but to the whole community. What a creep. Now, when I first heard this, the teacher, who happened to be a sister, made the point, of course, that we were just like this creep. And it was a good thing that God was merciful to us. So watch out. Don't do these things, especially the part about the prostitutes and the drinking and other things. But it's really not the point that Jesus has here. I mean, isn't it interesting that every one of the major characters here is somehow messed up? I mean, the father, you know, we admire him. We say, oh, what a soul. My goodness. But think of what he's reacting to. This younger child put everybody in the family in peril by demanding that essentially they liquidate, sold some of the land, and handed his inheritance over to him. So I don't know who else was named in the inheritance, but this certainly put a real sort of, how shall I say it, loss to the family fortune. And who knows if they had a famine the next year? Who knows if the father had gotten sick? Who knows? They could have gone under. But the kid had the nerve, the selfishness to demand his share. And then what does he do? He doesn't go off and invest it in an education. He doesn't go off and make more on it. He spends it. It's gone. And he's reduced, let me tell you, he is reduced to the bottom of bottoms. He's feeding the pigs. And for a Jew to be feeding pigs is pretty low. But then this unexpected thing takes place, right? He comes to himself. he has a moment of clarity. He gets sober. He realizes what he's done. And he could have kept running. He could have just disappeared. How many families have a black sheep like that just disappears? But no. Knowing that they might be breaking pots on his return and yelling at them, he goes back home. Because somewhere deep inside, he says to himself, it's home. It's my father. It's my brother. Where else have I got to go? Who else is going to take me in? And when he gets there, he doesn't have to beg to get into the gate. His father's running out. Somebody must have said, can you believe it? We saw him on the road. The father goes running out there, opens his arms, hugs him, forgives him, and then the party begins, right? Puts wonderful new clothes on him and says to the, angry older boy, look, he was lost, but now he's found. Well, you stop and think of all the lessons you've been hearing during Lent, all the various ways in which Lent has been a school for us. Think about them. I'll just remind you of the one last week where we celebrated the angel coming to Mary and telling her that she would, at the age of 13, and only engaged, would be the mother of the person who was going to save the world. For any 13-year-old or any 30 or 70-year-old to hear that, whoo, that's a lot to hear. But Mary's response was, here I am. I'm the servant of the Lord. Let it happen as it should.
Well, thank you.
And we saw in that God always provides, that God always gives a way even when there doesn't seem to be a way. Well, here, what we see is that contrary to my Sunday school teacher, God is not waiting up there to punish me or you. God is not keeping an account record. What is it online? What's the accounting stuff online? QuickBook. God is not maintaining a QuickBook account on you and me and everybody else in the world. That's not God. Thank God, God's not like us. A great desert father said that. Thank God that God is not like us. Because left to our own ways, we would want vengeance. We would want to exact some suffering from this creep. But the Father didn't. This is not a lesson in you can do whatever you want and God will look the other way. That would be a real easy way out. That's why I told the part about the social outcast ritual that would have preceded this man's coming home. No, this is not an easy bit of salvation and forgiveness. There was suffering.
Yes.
The father suffered. The rest of the family, probably the mother, if she were still alive, suffered. Even the older brother, for all of his anger, suffered. And God knows, the man who went out of control suffered a great deal. But in the end, God presents God's self as mercy. You can always tell what the main thrust of a Sunday is going to be if you listen to the hymns. There's a wide between God's mercy. And this is the picture that we're given as we come to the end of Lent. We know that everybody makes bad choices, and most of the time I know we've said to our children, bad choices are their own punishment. But God isn't about bad choices. God is about only one thing. That is, having made us, having put us into the world, seeing in every one of us God's own face, God wants us to thrive. God wants us to be joyful. God wants us to do what God does. Forgive other people. Take care of other people. Think of other people more than we think of ourselves. He got some good lessons to learn on this Sunday before it went. And